Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Willis Unscripted. And today I am joined by my friend, Miss Adina Welker. Why don't you introduce yourself to all the wonderful people watching and listening?
Thank you. My name's Adina Welker. I am the Mississippi Area Director for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention.
Wonderful, wonderful. And this is a organization I've gotten to know pretty well, pretty quickly, with Gene and you, and getting all some stuff together. But I just kind of wanted to get your story and get some facts and information out there for people. What got you? First off, let's start with the basics. What got you interested in working with the AFSP?
Mhm. So, we have in our family, we have a history of mental health professionals. My husband's worked in the mental health field for a long time, and I used to work in the medical profession and ran across a lot of mental health issues out in the field.
Okay.
So, it's always been kind of a sweet spot. We've got family and friends, who have had struggles with, you know, my circles overlap. My personal circles
Hmm.
overlap with some of my professional circles. So it just felt very natural and organic to see this. And then also just knowing Mississippi,
Hmm.
there is a mental health desert, and there are a lot of great people working really hard to change that and to provide resources to people, but there's not enough people yet. We have to change that, and we have to get more and more people involved in using their voices. And that's why I'm excited. I'm the first area director for Mississippi.
Wonderful.
Yes, thank you. So we had
Yeah.
a wonderful woman overseeing Mississippi and Louisiana. So being able to spend all of my focus on Mississippi has been wonderful. And I love being able to see from top to bottom and left to right, being able to develop partnerships with different agencies who all have the same mission, and that's to help people when they're in mental health crisis. So.
Oh yeah, I know. I know we've had conversations about me as a teacher. The things that I've seen, and I remember growing up it being a massive problem, and it just seemed like it would come in waves. Like it would be every couple of years there'd be a string of I don't want to say a string of suicides, but it would be kind of like a wave. It just boom, 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 and then mental health conversations in the classroom have gotten better, but
Yes.
it's numbers are still up. I remember seeing in the state of Mississippi, the number in 2023 was 423 or 25 for that year, and of
Mhm.
course, that's people who have actually passed, not everything else, right? So,
Mhm.
and are those numbers up, down from 10, 15 years? Or what are those numbers? What's the trend? What are you saying?
From what CDC has when they put out their records is usually around a 2-year lag.
Okay.
So you're able to get the information is there. It just takes a minute for them to compile it, get it, and get it out, get
Mhm.
spread out. Um, Back in 1981, all the way through 2023, suicide was the fifth leading cause of death
Mm.
in people ages 1 to 44. When you're looking at in the 2023 data, it's the second leading cause of death for people from ages 10 to 34, which is when you're looking at 10 to 34-year-olds, you're thinking, how how is a 10-year-old suicidal?
Mm.
Or, how do you get these numbers? But the facts are, we do have our young ones, our young high school, our young middle school at this point,
Mhm.
middle school and high schoolers, who are struggling with this.
Mhm.
Mental health, the public's perception of mental health has changed.
Uh-huh.
It has improved.
Yeah.
Um, as a culture, we're better about mental health, discussing mental health, um, normalizing discussing mental health. I always get tickled at people because they get, do you ever have mental health? And they're like, no, I don't have any mental health. And I'm like, okay, so we all have mental health.
Mhm.
Is your mental health healthy or is your mental health struggling and having trouble?
Right.
It's always very sweet, but it also just highlights the need for us to have those discussions of mental health is normal health. Mental health is a
Yes.
part of everyday health. We all have mental
Mhm.
health. It's a matter of how healthy is your
Right.
mental health. And so
Mhm.
just being able to normalize that, it has improved. It's improving.
Mhm.
But we're still not there. It's
No.
still not close enough, and people still to this day, and this is one of those things that is going to be this will be a game changer. This will change the tide. Right now, people are afraid to use the word suicide.
Mm,
They're afraid to say suicide. They're scared to say it. They think that one, it can never happen to them, or two, if you say it, maybe you're making them think them, and you're introducing the topic, this, that, or the other,
yeah.
or they just feel overwhelmed and underqualified to even know or address it, or they're sticking their head in the sand because that can't be real. That can't be really going on. We
Mhm.
have to stop being afraid to use the word suicide. We have got to brave up, say
Mhm.
the word suicide because we're losing people every day.
Yeah, the numbers aren't lying, and it's something where I've seen. And I mean, I don't wanna always blame social media. I'm not saying that's the only cause. There's so many aspects to what contribute to suicide,
Mhm,
which I do wanna talk about, of course, for people who are maybe feeling really
mhm,
intimidated, but
mhm.
I feel like it's like you said, people are maybe not sticking their head in the sand, but what if I say something that makes it worse?
Yeah, yeah.
Or it's that old, I don't wanna say old crotchety, but kind of just rub some dirt in it and just get back in there, kid. But
Yes, yes, that whole mentality of,
it's
tough it out,
yeah,
that old school mentality.
yeah,
But,
now sometimes people need the tough love, they do, but, sometimes it's not quite, you wouldn't tell somebody who'd been shot in the stomach, "Toughen it up, rub some dirt in it, you're fine." But
right?
sometimes that's exactly what people mentally are going through, they are dealing with
Mhm,
that kind of a gaping bullet hole,
mhm,
and, yeah, that tough love dirt's not gonna fix it, they need somebody, they need that mental health. We
mhm,
all have it, and we
mhm.
need some good vitamins, we need some good surgery, some good medicine to
Yes.
fix it.
Yes, we do. And that's kind of one of the things that I love about American Foundation for Suicide Prevention is that we do have a lot of education programs. We
Mhm,
have a lot of things that we work on. Research is huge, huge. A lot of what we know about suicide, it comes from a lot of the research that we fund. We have projects all across the country internationally. We've had some here in
wow.
Mississippi.
Yeah,
But yeah, we work really hard on research. And so the programs that we develop are science based.
okay.
It's not something pie out of the sky. There's science based programs, and the research proves, the science proves that in a moment of crisis, if you can take 10 minutes and get in a moment of crisis, 10 minutes of intercession and buying that pocket of time will immediately stop dropping the risk. So we have
Mm,
a program called Talk Saves Lives where we will teach people different things about suicide. One, what are risk factors? What are
mhm,
contributing factors? And what are those protective factors? And then also the third thing would be what are the warning signs? Because those are three very different things that people don't understand.
mhm,
They are different. You've got those warning signs to keep an eye out on. There are risk factors, and everybody's is different. There
okay.
are some that are overlapping that are commonalities, but then everybody's individually expressed a different way. And then
Mhm,
what most people don't know that there are protective factors you can put into place to help reduce your risk and
that's very
put
important.
a buffer in there for yourself. So there's a lot of
Mhm,
education that needs to happen. We've got the research, we've got the education.
mhm,
One of the things is the public awareness is getting people to have that conversation. It's important
right.
to me.
Yeah,
Um,
of course. I know, when I was talking to Jean, last time, and I know for a soft spot for me too is kind of that 10 to 34 age range, because that's just where I find myself the most in.
Mhm.
But I know there's also risk factors for those who are elderly as well, right? I mean, that's somebody I would love to just dive into that as well. But it seems like it doesn't matter what stage of life you're in, there are risk factors and things that contribute. Um, but what are some just I know everyone like you said, everyone is different, but what are some of those common risk factors that, people listening and watching might be able to look for?
Yeah. So, a lot of the risk factors are stuff like previous experience.
Okay.
You've got if you, I want to be careful how I phrase this. With you have people who have history of suicide.
Okay.
experience, whether it's been in their family suicide loss or a suicide attempt within their family, if they've had their own suicidal thoughts or their own suicidal attempts, that
Mhm.
automatically increases it.
Okay.
When you're looking at stuff like when you're looking at stuff like community,
Okay.
community is huge. Being connected to people is big. A lot, like when you're looking at our seniors, we're looking at stuff like, they've got chronic health issues. There's a lot of, had a lot of loss in their lives, or they've had, there's a lot of isolation, stuff like
Mhm.
that. So that's when it's kind of an important thing to look at. What are those things? So you've got like when you're looking at the other risk factors, stuff like head injury. Like
Okay.
yes, head injuries
That's
increase.
right. That's right. CTEs. We've seen that with players. That's right.
Yes,
That's right.
we do a lot with sports,
Mhm.
and then chronic stress,
Mm.
sudden loss.
Mm.
If you have got, um, uh, if you're under a prolonged period, if you're under stress for a prolonged period of time,
Mhm.
if you have, um, chronic, ongoing, long-term illnesses, if you've got something where you're in a severe amount of pain for a long time, those are all things that contribute. Um, so those are all different things. You've got like, a history of assault. When you're looking at stuff like chronic victimization, be it, sexual or gender
Mhm.
or, you know, racial, all of the
Mhm.
different things, anything where your power is taken away, where your strength is hit at, where you do feel alone, you feel isolated.
Mhm.
Those are all things that will contribute to it. A history of abuse or neglect.
Mhm.
So those are all things, and the lack of access to mental health care, quality mental health care.
Mhm.
We need insurance to pay for it.
Yeah.
So you need to be able to get to it. A lot of
Yeah.
Mississippi is a mental health desert.
Yeah.
We're better than we were, but we're not even close to being good enough.
No.
It's
Not at
and
all.
then you have to have insurance to pay for it because
Yep.
it's providers. We don't have enough providers.
No, we don't.
Looking at Mississippi being so rural, having
Mhm.
access to get to the providers, and
Yeah.
then having the stigma of seeking mental health to be removed. Because a
Mhm.
lot of people, I have some friends who are therapists, and they see a lot of military or first responders, police officers, fire, and those ladies and gentlemen will park blocks away so that no one recognizes their car at the therapist's
Yeah.
office
Yeah.
because there's that stigma there.
There is, and I can imagine for law enforcement and military, anyone where they're having to put their bodies on the line, right? Maybe maybe that the perception is that you're damaged goods, like you
Mhm.
can't perform your job if you're
Mhm.
struggling with this,
Yes.
which is absolutely, asinine to me. I believe that if you can get access to therapy, that means that you are going to be able to intervene in ways that
Mhm.
are going to be healthier for everyone involved, that are going to help you make the right decision. Because therapy is not just about people crying and breaking down, it's giving you tools to be able to understand your thoughts better, not
Yes.
to encourage you to be crazy. I feel like even today, sometimes when I go see a therapist, it's that immediate gut reaction from some people, "Oh, they're crazy." It's like,
Mhm.
No." Or if people, and it's not just suicide, but just talking about, "Oh, this person has, BPD," "Oh,
Mhm.
well, then I don't know how to handle that person." You handle them like you handle anybody else.
Everybody
Yeah.
else.
Mhm.
Yes. Yeah,
So
so, I mean, and it's funny that you it's funny that you say that because I have a personal motto, and my personal motto is that everybody needs to be in therapy,
Yeah.
either for either
Yeah.
for fixing something that you need to work on or
Yeah.
preventative maintenance.
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean,
Yeah.
it is therapy is multi-factor beneficial
Mhm.
because it's either helping you resolve hurts or to, fix problems, develop tools to deal with
Mhm.
ongoing struggles, or just simply building up your resilience building up your strength and
Yeah.
doing some preventative maintenance, just like you go change the oil in your car. You don't wait till your whole car is broken down first.
Ideally, you don't because then it becomes way more expensive.
Very harder to deal with.
Yeah, and you can't in this analogy, you can't get a new car, you can't get a new body when that breaks down, you know?
Mm. And
Uh,
and one thing too is that while mental health struggles like depression,
mhm,
bipolar, any of the things, while those things are a contributing factor, they are not the factor. They are
right.
not the only factor. There are a lot of people who have mental health struggles
Mhm,
who have very happy, well-adjusted lives,
mhm,
and suicide is never an issue for them. Or if they
mhm,
struggle with it, then they go on to live a very long and happy life, and they
right.
never struggle with it again. So it's
Mhm,
not an automatic. Suicide's not simple. There's not
yeah,
one thing that causes it. It's
no.
complex things, and there are a lot of things that do contribute.
Oh yeah, people are complex. We're not that simple, every person, if anyone's ever, raised children or had children of their own, I just handle them at the school, but every child, every person needs a little bit of a different touch, right? I mean, everyone has a different experience and a different lens. I joke, I make the joke with Ben of, some kids you can say, I'm very disappointed in you. And the kid breaks down like, oh, Meanwhile, I was the child, and I think Ben was the child of if my parents said, I'm disappointed in you, I would be so. I had to, I needed a different approach. And so that wouldn't have worked, So, but I imagine it's the same way when dealing with suicide prevention and, helping people have those, preventative factors in their lives. And I know we mentioned with the elderly, and you brought up community.
Mhm.
I know that it's important, but why does it seem to be community is the biggest, is one of those big preventative factors?
I think for multiple reasons. I think that we are created to be in community. I think that how we are designed, I think our bodies are, I mean, because you look at the biology of it, I
Mhm.
believe that our bodies develop and are developed towards connection. We
Yeah,
are like when you're sitting there literally looking at oxytocin and
yeah,
all of those chemicals, and those are released through human interactions. I think our bodies are designed, they are shaped and to be relational and to be
yeah,
connected. There's so many studies out there that talk about, physical touch or touch with someone you love, or how much of this oxytocin is released, or how much cortisol drops when you talk to someone you love,
right.
or all of these things. So community is important, and especially there and I'm gonna use a recent example.
Okay.
We have, at American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, this is my first year, so I'm getting to do a lot of my firsts.
Woo!
I know, it's been great. So we
Huh.
had our first, we have an event called the International Survivor of Suicide Loss Day,
Okay.
and it is always the Saturday before Thanksgiving,
Mm,
because the holidays are particularly brutal
mm,
when there's an empty seat at the table,
yeah.
and you know that person's supposed to be there. So it's always the Saturday before the holidays,
Okay.
and, it is geared specifically and solely towards people who have lost loved ones to suicide.
Okay.
And so I had my first one this year,
Hmm.
and I was very nervous. But, it was so important that, it was so important that the spirit of it was honored and fulfilled. And
Hmm.
so I sat and developed the program for it. We had an outreach and people attended. We had people attend from, different states. I had one person drive an hour and a half to
Wow.
get to it. Yes, their whole family drove an hour and a half because they had lost their loved one 5 weeks earlier.
Oh, Lord.
I'm
Mm,
sitting here in this room, and I've got the presentation together, and there's people coming in, and I've read when they apply and they register, and I've read kind of, so I know a little bit, and
mhm.
then a couple of them I know of. Some of them haven't had time to get to know yet, and it was people came in, and we had just a very gentle kind of, "Hi, I am," touch base. But then, would have like a little snippet of the information, and then, "Hey, let's talk about this."
Mm,
And another little 2 or 3-minute video, and then, "Let's talk about this." And so it was like 2 hours.
wow.
It was phenomenal because a group of strangers, about 40-ish
Okay.
people, strangers, walked into a room, and because they were all there for the same reason, the same loss, the same pain,
Mhm.
and then they spent that time together sharing their pain or sharing hope
Mhm.
of, "Hey, I'm this far on the other side of this, and these are things that have helped me," or, "I
Mm.
know that this is how you're feeling," or, "This is what do I do next?" or, "How do I
Mm.
talk to my kids?" Or, it was just and so watching them have real human connections
Mm.
and conversations and connect that way. It was 40 strangers walked in and a community walked out.
Mm.
They were bonded. I think some of them got each other's phone numbers.
Hey. Yeah.
Like, it's community, and they
Yeah.
all walked out, with a sense of hope. Like, I had emails, the team who helped me put it together, the chair there, she got multiple emails saying, "This
Right.
helped me so much. This was so
Oh,
wonderful." We had
wonderful.
this precious little boy, you know, one of the things that's important to me is that we speak responsibly and safely about suicide. A lot of people um, say things well-meaningly or out of habit or
Mm.
culturally haven't
Okay.
unlearned, and some
Okay.
of those things can be harmful or
Okay.
hurtful. They can
Mhm.
magnify pain. We don't say committed.
Okay.
You don't you commit a crime.
Okay.
There is a sense of, it's not right. We
Mm.
don't say it was failed or successful. You
Okay.
fail a test. You successfully pass an exam. You
True.
don't no. So
Yeah.
we say died by suicide, took their life, ended
Mm.
their life, suicide
Okay.
attempt, but we're careful that when the words we use, if we use them responsibly, the
Okay.
words we use can speak life, they can speak hope, they
Mhm.
can speak acceptance, they can speak community instead of speaking division or separation or isolation or loneliness. It
Yeah.
can produce this. So we had one of the things we were talking on was safe language and how to
Okay.
tell your story. And it was there was a young man, a little one. He was around 10ish, which is the age of my grandson, and had lost
Mhm.
his big sister earlier
Mm.
in the year. And it was a room full of adults. I think was the only child there
Wow.
in this room full of adults. He steps out because we were talking about it, language to use, not to use, and
Yeah.
I'm so thankful for the atmosphere that we had been able to create, that the attendees had been able to create. Because, he stepped forward and he said, "Well, I have a question." He said, What do I say when my friends ask me how she died?
Mm.
What do I say when they ask me why did she do that?" And I was just like,
Yeah.
years old. He's 10 years old. He's 10 years old. And
Yeah.
so I want it was important to me that, understanding that this may be the only moment we have to speak life and strength into him that he may be needing for the next 30 years because people are going to
Yeah.
keep asking this question
Yeah.
until we teach them tonight. And I just boiled it down to, I think in bullet points. Three.
Mm.
One is suicide's complex and there's not one cause.
Yeah.
Two, um, we don't know why she took her life. And three, we don't talk about how she took her life outside of our family. That's private.
Mm.
And so, are those three things that you feel like you can say? Do those three things make you feel strong? Is that something you feel like you could tell your friends? And he was like, "Yeah, I think I can."
Oh.
And it was so sweet. I said, and I want you to also understand this not just for your friends, because this is also a way that you can respond if your parents' friends ask or if your teacher asks.
Mhm.
These are ways that you can also respond to them
Yeah.
respectfully, but still protect that place.
Mhm.
That's nobody's business.
No.
It's nobody's business.
No.
So, trying to just teach that whole concept of speak life and speak hope, speak connection, community is important. Isolation is harmful. I'm
Mhm.
trying to make sure that we're mindful of those things. And that's one of the things that we have, like with the Talk Saves Lives, is how
Mhm.
do you speak in ways that are life giving, that are affirmative? What do you say? How do you say it? When do you say it? When do you not? All of the things.
Mhm.
We have a lot of education programs that we have um, that I think are really, really good at helping to educate them. the public. So we have like
Uh-huh.
Saves Lives, which is our big one, like
Yeah.
but then we also have taken it because there's different populations who have different contributing factors,
Mhm.
like our elderly, like our military and first responders, like all, African Americans, like postpartum. So you've got
Mhm.
all of these different areas. Then we're able to kind of laser down some of those nuances, that some of those specific contributing factors, and what are some specific resilience things that we can put in, protective factors we can put in, ways to
Mhm.
address and educate. And so, we have, various versions of talk size geared towards our adolescents, in our
Uh-huh.
high school and
Yeah.
college,
Yeah.
into the construction industry. Veterans are twice as high risk factors as the
Mhm.
general populations, but the construction and mining industry is 4 times higher, which is what
Really?
I didn't know.
I didn't know
Staggering.
that either. Huh.
Yes.
I wonder if it's just the nature of the dangerous work, maybe. I mean, there more I would imagine there's more on the job accidents maybe. I could maybe see that.
Yeah, there's a lot of contributing factors. One of
Yeah.
them is gonna be they're away from their home, they're away from their
Okay.
families.
Yeah.
They're away from home or away from their families. 2 is a high stress job. Some of them
Yes.
are very dangerous. They're physically demanding.
Mhm.
Often you're away from your family, you have nothing to fill your time with, you have job site injuries,
Yeah.
and part of recovery usually ends up having to have a surgery or, be braced and that, painkillers
Yeah.
when used appropriately and responsibly, but that can also go
Agreed.
sideways on you. You know,
Mm.
Downtime, not having your community. There's
Mhm.
a lot, and there's a longer even list than that, but off the
Yeah.
top of my head,
Yeah.
so the list is long, but
Mhm.
that's a staggering number. And in fact, we just launched a
Yeah.
special program called Hard Hat Courage.
Okay.
Yeah, that's geared specifically towards our construction industry, and we have
Okay.
a whole new event called the Construction Hike for Hope,
Oh,
where we get the construction industry and all of the affiliates and the family members and all to get together and have a fundraising event, where we get to talk where they're in community, where they
wonderful.
understand each other.
Yes.
And
Yes, and so
we
important.
it is, and so then we get to have this hard hat courage where we go in and teach at no cost to teach
Mhm.
to companies about about their, employees, and to teach the employees how to take care of themselves and each
Yeah.
other.
Mhm.
Yeah, we've got a lot of resources in education, and there's just not enough of us yet to
Yeah,
do that.
there's not, and, I know when I talked to Jean, last time, I just kinda went off on how it's just it's so frustrating that there's not enough resources available. I mean, there
Mhm.
are some, but it's over the system's overtaxed, overburdened, and, it needs to be provided in so many insurances. Don't I mean, you mentioned about insurance being needed to be able to be paid for. Well, insurance, I know for me, when I was looking up for, I was in a crisis. I could not, first, I couldn't find somebody close enough. And then on top of that, it would have to be fully out of pocket.
Mhm.
And there's benefits to there being telehealth. I think it's
Mhm.
wonderful, but there's something to me when it comes down to mental health and going to a therapist and going to a psychiatrist. I want to do that in person because there's so many. Yes, telehealth's great, but it's being in the room. Like you can feel, for my listeners, I'm a Christian. I believe you can feel the spirit, and the energy in that room that you can't quite get the same way, on a video call. It's great. I get to see you and get to see your lovely face, but it's not the same, right?
Yeah. I think, with mental health, especially with therapists, I encourage people to interview
Yeah, true, true.
interview your
Yeah.
medical team, and when you're considering that, your mental health providers and your therapists and mental health is part of your physical health, it's all a part of your health.
Mhm.
Also, you want to just not use the first therapist that, that's on the list. You want to have somebody that is compatible with your personality, that is
Mhm.
versed, especially in that, there are, therapists who aren't as strong
Mhm.
in the suicidality, approach, and if it's not a good fit for you, then it can do more harm than good. So I encourage people,
Mhm.
one person, maybe a second, maybe a third, keep going because you must be your own advocate.
Yeah.
Your mental health is critical
Mhm.
and you have to find the right fit because when you find the right fit,
It's
then
great.
you are able to develop trust. You're able to relax into them. You lean into their knowledge base, trust that, and then you're able to soak it in and use that to develop your own resilience. You can have a plan of, look, when you have trust with your therapist and you're feeling yourself go sideways, you
Mhm.
can say, "Hey, I'm feeling this way. Help. I need some help." Instead of hiding it and letting it just snowball into an avalanche, you're able, when you trust them, that you can then they'll know you, and then you can also trust them. It's critical. It is critical. I
Mhm.
cannot underscore the importance enough of getting mental health. And therapists are critical. They're very important. You have to have a good therapist.
Yes.
Also, I love psychiatry. You have to have the
Mhm.
same approach with psychiatrists.
Yep.
You have to have a good one. There are a lot of mental health issues that can be managed with medications and
Mhm.
will give you such beautiful quality of life and who doesn't wanna live their best life? So
Right.
utilize all of the tools that are available for
Oh,
us.
yeah. Absolutely, and I know, I've talked to, some relatives who are, mental health, teachers. Well, not mental health, what am I saying? They teach psychology, some of them are psychiatrists,
Mhm.
and they will tell me, and even I've used it because, again, there's a dearth of resources of
Right,
using the family practitioner for the medication.
right.
Those poor family medicine practitioners are asked to be a jack of all trades. And, my aunt said, no, you need to find a specialist. You need to find somebody. I know you like your doctor, but he is not trained to do that, like specifically this.
Mhm,
And, but it's so important to give yourself, as you said, give yourself that permission to be your own advocate.
mhm.
Too many people I know will go into a doctor's office and just, I'm not saying I don't trust doctors, please hear me, internet people, when I say this, I do trust doctors, but if you know you have some kind of a problem, you have to advocate.
Yeah.
My husband, just as a really quick example, he has very bad asthma, nasal polyps. He needs to get a sleep study. I know he's probably going to listen to this. You need to get a sleep study. And so he stops breathing. And so it's just like if I just really had that tendency, just going to take that pillow right over and just go to sleep. No, no, I won't do that. But he has gotten sinus infections now 2 years, really bad infections 2 years in a row. And our, medicine, family doctor that we've gone to and has underprescribed antibiotics
Mhm,
for him
mhm,
in treating him, kind of not really taking that asthma into account. He has gotten pneumonia both times because the antibiotics weren't strong enough. And so I've told him, Ben, you have to tell them I need stronger antibiotics. Do I have to go in there with you? No, I can do it. But so many people are like my husband and they don't,
mhm.
and maybe it's a man thing. I don't know.
It's
But
not. It's
you
men and women.
have to go in and you have to advocate, and of course that's true for any, medical situation, but especially with, therapy and finding a therapist. You've got to
Mhm,
find, I know the person I used when I was a teenager, no longer practicing, we
mhm,
got along great.
right.
He would have been the person I would have gone to now, but he is long since
Mhm.
retired. But nobody really took over his practice, right?
Right.
And so it's finding those connections, and then
Mhm,
I'll ask people that I know because I'm lucky enough to have mental health people in my family, but then their connections have moved away or
right,
they've retired. It's like,
right,
how does someone vet and not feel like, well, dang, I want to get this a therapy, but I can't find any, and I
right.
keep going through therapists. And like,
Mhm.
and
Yep.
I would imagine, does that contribute
It does.
more?
I mean,
Yeah.
you have to, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that I interviewed my physicians when I'm like, "I have a care team, and I need to
Hmm.
make sure you're gonna fit into my care team."
Mm,
In this respectful way of saying, "I've heard about your skill set, I respect your skill set, I need to know if you're gonna be a fit of my team because my team I have a team of specialists, I've got my team. I need
hmm.
to know if you're gonna fit into my team."
Uh-huh.
And if it's a yes, then we're a go. And if it's a not, then I'm going to go interview someone else. But it
Uh-huh.
is about if it's not the right person, one, it can do harm, or two, you're wasting your time and
Yeah.
time's too short to waste and suffer. So be your own advocate. I think there's also a generational thing. There's, with our older population, they tend to be well, the doctor said
Yeah.
so. And I'm like, mm-mm, no, no,
Mm-mm.
no, no.
No. Yeah. I mean, that's true. I mean, I think there may have been, and I'm just kinda thinking back to, and that's even differences with my mother and I with certain not that my mom has a bad approach, but I can just tell, like, it's a generational thing because there
Mhm.
were more male doctors when she was growing up
Yeah.
versus now we have more female doctors and, maybe more female specific territories where I would never go to a man, but that's just because I have the benefit and the blessing of there's more people who are literally my gender that
Right.
I can go to.
Yes.
But she's the exact opposite. She would never go, but
Mhm.
that's what she was exposed to growing
Yes.
up, and
That was her culture and that's her mindset. And,
mhm,
that's one of those things where you just have to kind of acknowledge, that's one of the beautiful things I think about AFSP is that we could try to consider the whole person. There is no cookie cutter. We're
no.
not cookie cutter. People are beautifully and widely diverse
Yeah.
and different and all of those things. And even within just one specific population, every individual has different things that affects them. So
Oh, yeah.
we all have to kind of have it when we're looking at those programs or those education pieces, or just in general, just looking at all those personality or all those cultural or social things,
Mhm,
that do contribute to a person's risk factors, their resiliency,
mhm,
their protective factors, and
mhm,
and just the wholeness of who they are as a human.
mhm. Yeah, I can imagine just in the 1 year you've been involved with, AFSP, just the different stories you've heard and the different ways that this topic so matters, and I just I wish more people would be brave enough to talk about it and not, because I hear it and I can be a bit of a perfectionist and wanna make the right choice 100% of the time, but you brought up that 10 minutes a distance
Mhm.
is key. I mean, and just maybe having these conversations of just getting people maybe more comfortable, maybe more confident,
Yeah.
and just being there in so many ways, just being there and getting them
Mhm.
not isolated for those
Yeah.
10 minutes,
Yes.
reaching out.
Mhm.
You don't have to be a professional for that.
No, I mean, we will even train you. Like, all you
Okay.
have to do is make a phone call, and we will
Mhm.
come and train you, or like if you're
Wow.
at work, or at your faith home, or at your civic group, or at your whoever. If people want the education, we will come in and provide it. I mean, we have these amazing fundraising events that are beautiful, but
Mhm.
it's so that we can provide these services to people. So it is literally education. Just invite us. We'll come. We'll come and teach. So, yeah.
That's wonderful. I would, I've been trying to set aside time to be able to do the program, for the adolescents in college myself because that's who I'm around, right? But it's so important, and I think here in the Deep South, Mississippi especially,
Mhm,
there's such a stigma attached to saying that you have mental health struggles because
mhm.
some denominations, some people, some churches may say, well, you should just pray harder,
Yeah.
or your faith isn't strong enough,
Mhm,
which, I know growing up, not that anyone really said that to me to
mhm,
be mean or callous or cruel, but as somebody who I'm very analytical, I can go through like implications. Oh, that means I'm not a Christian. That means God doesn't love me. That mean, and I ended up being,
mhm,
spiraling, right?
mhm.
And people would try to use the faith as a thing to maybe scare me to stay alive. Um, but I think here in the South, especially, and again, there's a church on every corner, it seems. And so it's just trying to, in a way, meet people where they are, whether or not, I'm a, devout believer, that's my background, but trying to connect to those people and have them see that mental health or struggling with suicide, it's not a matter of a lack of faith. It's a struggle of so many different issues. I know for me, it was chemical. It was
Mhm,
all in my brain. It is what it is.
mhm,
But, you know, instead of telling someone to do something and telling someone to, in a way, rub dirt in it and keep
mhm,
going or just pray it away,
right.
why don't you surround that person with love? Why don't you reach out and instead of judging, because we like to do that,
Yeah,
um, yeah, at least you judge and say, at least I'm not that messed up,
yeah,
and just invite them. I noticed when I had people reach out and just hug on me and love me.
mhm,
I'm not a hugger, much to my husband's chagrin,
mhm,
but it's just that physical connection and feeling like I do matter, people do love me, I am connected,
mhm.
which I don't know, sometimes to me, maybe our faith family and our deep South culture, I don't know, we tend to get that wrong.
It is very much a stigma, and I have heard that a lot. I've
Mm,
heard that so long. I have definitely heard that. There's a lot of I'm going to use the word ignorance because it indicates a lack of knowledge.
yeah.
So there's a lack of knowledge slash ignorance. There's a lack of understanding that will sometimes allow a person or have a person be that way. Another is like you said, judgy. And then another is, there are faiths and faith beliefs that are locked in and that this is the way it is. Um, but I think that I'm seeing, in fact, I have heard and I've had ministers, I've had pastors come to me who who have been like, we've lost someone to suicide and I have to preach their eulogy in
Mm,
2 days and I have no idea what to say. I
mm,
don't know what to say. How do I how do I say this? I was we had our Mississippi had our advocacy action day at the Capitol
mhm,
on Thursday, and it was also there were a lot of ministers and people of the faith there working on some stuff that they were working on, and actually we ended up having so many conversations. I spoke with I think four different pastors or ministers who were asking me or who were saying, hey, this was my experience and this is what I did. Um, Again, though, when you use language that is healthy, when you use language that includes community, when you use language that is life-giving, um, that can be a difference between a person healing
mhm,
or a person getting hurt more. And quite frankly, if you lose someone to suicide, then you're hurting enough and you don't need people to add to it. And I
mhm,
do believe that, our ministers, our pastors, our the leaders of our faith homes are usually there, because their
yeah,
heart is to help, their heart
mm,
is to lead and to bless, and so we do have a lot of stuff where we try to coordinate with them into our homes of faith. Come in, do education classes, talk about safe languages. I've listened to several of them the other day. Were like, I wrote this eulogy. Do you need a copy? And
yeah,
I was like, I don't think I would mind that. But yeah, I mean, your faith, it can't. People's faith can be it can be, so we really need to discuss that.
yeah,
But when you look at the heart of why our leadership is there in our faith homes, there's also
mhm,
great opportunity
yeah,
to speak life. I feel like that's an area where we're going to be able to grow
mhm,
more, especially when you look at the sheer numbers, because I think sometimes their hearts are burdened by the number of people who come to them
yeah,
struggling. And,
yeah,
just like with medication, they don't wanna talk people don't wanna talk about medication. Please take
mhm,
the medicine.
yeah,
If
yeah,
it works, do it,
yes,
how
yeah,
it's received, um,
mhm,
is important, and if our
yeah,
pastors and ministers are able to give information
mhm,
that will help, then
yeah,
and if 'cause, I mean, we will come in and we will do a training in that church,
yeah,
and we
yeah.
will equip them, and then people know that their leader is safe to come to.
Yeah, and I think that's so and I went to seminary, I felt, we've talked about this, but I went and I loved it and I was following God's call. But I know in my seminary, and I know I can't speak to everywhere, but unless you're going into something that is specifically counseling, you don't get enough training to deal with, not to say to deal with, but to help people with
Mhm.
all these different
Yeah.
issues, especially certainly not suicide.
Mhm.
You might be able to counsel maybe some in marriage, but you're not going to be a qualified marriage counselor. And in some of these small towns, rural Mississippi, I'm thinking, well, geez, Louise, you're the only mental health person for maybe 40, 50 miles, if not more. And I feel like that would be, and I don't know how you would go about doing it, but somehow connecting to these smaller or these local deep South seminaries, even. I
Yes.
mean, that I just to give them tools and to give a crash, I don't want to say a crash course, but to help,
Mhm.
educate for these moments of crisis.
Mhm.
Hey, ministers, this is what you can do.
Yes.
Obviously redirect to the qualified individuals, but in this immediate moment,
Mhm.
what can you do that's going to be helpful?
Yes.
You know, so
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, and when you're, especially when you're looking at, like our postpartum, our women who are postpartum, that first year, the
yeah.
risk factors are so high. And so just knowing that, we're looking at our advocacy, our reference to advocacy earlier, one of the
Uh-huh.
things that we're trying to do with our advocacy movement, both state and national, is
Mhm.
to get common sense legislation passed that will help support the mental health of our communities. Right now we've got 2708, which is postpartum depression, to require screenings to get insurance to pay for it so that people will do it.
Yeah.
We've just gotten the task force has been on with the first responders and military that went through last year. They've been working really hard
Wonderful.
on that. And rural health is important. That's one of
Mhm.
when you look at us as a nation, one of our advocacy pillars is rural health because there are
Mhm.
huge pockets, and we have got to find ways to reach them. And trust is critical, but then we
Yeah.
also have to have access and funding.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I know that is something I'm so excited that y'all's organization does is you don't just give people resources of how to talk, but you are on the front lines. You're picketing, so to speak, and trying to make actual change.
Oh,
And
yes.
that's something that's huge. That
Yes.
if we want, you know, changes in our health,
Mhm.
mental health deserts, we've got to do something. It's not
Yes.
just enough to wish. We've got to make the laws, make the changes to make insurance cover it.
Mhm.
And sometimes you got to use the firm hand of the law and justice to do it.
Yes. Well, I mean, and that's kind of the thing. That is one of the things that I love about AFSP is we are boots on the ground, like, you know, nationally, so federal and then state. So,
Hmm.
we have got some great proponents and ambassadors and supporters at the state level and at the national level who have their ears open, their hearts open, and are like really working and trying to get these things passed, progress made. Um, People will follow the laws when we have to when you make them. It's
Yeah.
sad we have to make them, but we make them and it gets stuff done. But we really do. We've worked really hard. We've gotten the Laura Breen Act extended. We've gotten a lot of things done and in place, but there's still a long way to go. But I am very proud of the advocacy movements that we've
Mhm.
made. You know, it is beautiful. That one of the sweet experiences, was when I went to Forum last year, which is where I met Jean.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
yes. So, went to Forum and went with 2 people who had lost their sons, and Doug won't mind me sharing this. He's very, very public with his story. He's very, very confident and, comfortable with sharing it and won't mind my sharing, but, he lost his son, Sean, when he was 21, and he was active duty military,
Mm,
and, all of these years, Doug has advocated in Sean's name and in Sean's honor.
mm,
When we were sitting at federal legislator's office, and I was sitting beside it, and, I thought I knew I did know Doug's story. I didn't know the rest of his story. He
Mhm.
also, and that was the first time I'd ever heard it, he told, Senator Hyde-Smith that, there was an act we're trying to get where the VA to do these lock boxes to put your guns in.
Mhm.
He had shared about his son's loss, losing his son's life. He said, um, "That box is the reason I'm sitting on this couch." I couldn't
Mm,
combination. I couldn't remember the combination, and it gave me just enough time to come back to myself.
mm.
It was that pocket of time, and in so when you're looking at we use our voices. We There are people who listen.
Yeah.
We've got some great legislators here at the state level and at the federal level. But we had our state action day the other day.
Yeah, that's right, that's
And so
right.
I have a list, and they really are. It's a
Mhm.
bipartisan issue. It affects
Uh-huh.
everyone. And even if you don't have a mental health struggle with your family, but I mean, when you start looking and knowing the statistics, your daughter is having a baby, do we want to have some postpartum protection in place for her?
Yeah.
What about our children?
Mhm.
What are we going to have? So it is important. We do work really hard. I'm very proud of our policy office and the work that we're doing, because it is making a difference. We need more people to raise their voices and say this matters to me, because sometimes people respond to, people saying what's important to them. I mean, they work for us. We hire them.
Mhm.
We vote for them. So to hear the constituents say these things are priorities for me. So it's
Mhm.
really important. One of the things I'm working on is to grow our advocates in Mississippi, more and
Uh-huh.
more people who are willing to tell their story, to tell their struggle, to find their brave and speak up.
Mhm.
And it is supported on a state and local level. I mean, like our 988 funding, we have got to get that secured.
Yeah.
988 is here. It is talk or text. Beautiful thing about 988. Some people like to call. It's
Mhm.
24/7. Mississippi has one of the best rates in the country. FYI, very proud of
Okay.
that. Shout
Right.
out. Um, so, 988, but 988 is also good for our youth, because a lot of students or youngs will text versus talk. They
Mhm.
can do it discreetly,
Mhm.
and so the talk or text is there, it's always open. We need we have to
Yeah.
have stable, secure, permanent funding,
Yeah.
period. You can't
Yep.
teach people to call 911 and then pull 911. That's
That's
what we're
right.
doing here. We're teaching people 988 is a life-saving resource.
Mhm.
Call it, helps there. What, we're gonna pull it? No, we have to
Yeah.
activate it. That's just one of the
Yeah.
list of things
Yeah.
that we're
Yeah.
working on. So there's a lot of movement that needs to be made. There's a lot of landscape that needs to be changed. Mississippi
Mhm.
has so When I started, I had experience out in the field working, and then my husband was in mental health for years. I knew Mississippi had some, areas mental health was not, where mental health was either absent or very weak, not
Yeah.
strong. I was prepared for that. I was pretty stunned to have spent this last year walking and learning just how severe the desert is.
Mm.
Um, that being said, because I mean it's been a little staggering
Mhm.
to see just how bad it is.
Yeah.
That being said, it also is such an opportunity
Yeah.
to raise up people, to teach people, to educate
Yeah.
people, to make changes in community, and to change the landscape. While
Mhm.
it is not a good place, there is so much room for growth, and
Yeah.
every bit matters. Every bit
Absolutely.
matters. Every life matters.
Yes. And, I wanna just commend the work that you're doing, and I know I don't wanna take up all your time. We've been talking for a good we could keep on talking, but, I mean, it's so important, and I just want people to know that there are resources available. You just mentioned 988, that's a very big call
Mhm.
text. I know that's probably one of the quickest and easiest ways people can get in touch. And I know, what are some other resources? Because I want to leave our viewers with just some resources of what are some next steps they can take, some quick things that we can just let them know.
Part of the thing is that the resources available, some people will be able to access and some people
Yeah.
won't.
Okay.
Or or more than that, that there's resources people certain populations will feel more comfortable
Understood.
accessing. So you've got the 988 talk or text. Mississippi has a great response rate on that.
Good.
You've also got the crisis text line.
Mhm.
Um, so the number for that is 741-741. And if you text talk to that number, you'll
Okay.
get it in English. But if you text, and I can't say it correctly, I'm going to learn,
Okay.
Ayuda, Ayuda,
Okay.
um, to that number, you'll get a Spanish consultant, um,
Okay.
crisis interventionist. So that's very special. You've got the 988. You've got the emergency room. I mean, the thing is, if a person is an imminent threat, if they
Yeah.
are in imminent crisis right here, right now, call 911.
Okay.
Call 911 because um, it's a crisis and there's
Yeah.
a life at stake. Call 911. But the critical thing for 911, our officers who respond, um,
Mhm.
and having worked in EMS for years, I know that sometimes what comes through on the other end of the radio is not always what was happening in real life.
Yeah.
So it's critical that people, if they have to call 911 in a moment of crisis, give all the information available to the dispatcher. And
Yeah.
then understanding that when the police arrive, they're expecting certain things.
Mhm.
Always try to come out, just even though you think that they've gotten the information, they may not have. They may not have gotten the information. They may not have gotten all the information.
Right.
So again, be sure to clarify this is what's going on, just
Yeah.
to help reduce any risk of things going sideways because
Right.
it's difficult for them to walk into the situations
Yeah.
and it's difficult to ask for that to come into your situation, especially, in certain areas, certain populations where there is a fear of
Understood.
911. So, it's always best to discuss, talk, tell your dispatcher, communicate with those first responders. When they first land, tell them everything you got, even if you think you've heard it before. They may not have gotten it. They may have gotten the short, condensed clip. Give them that information.
Right.
Communicate is really the best thing.
Mhm.
I can't articulate that enough.
Yeah.
You can go to SAMHSA. Um,
Yeah.
there's a long list of resources.
Right. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much. My lights are giving out on me now, girl. We have talked a lot,
We have
but yes, thank you so much for your time. I'll put up a list of all the different resources that are out there too that we
Thank
couldn't
you.
think of
Yes.
right ahead of time. But
Yeah.
thank you so much, Adina, for taking this time to talk to
It is
me.
my pleasure. It is my pleasure. And one day we can come back and talk about risk factors, resilience,
Yeah,
protective
yeah.
factors, warning signs.
Absolutely. This can be a multi-series. We can absolutely do this.
I
So, but
think
thank
you'll
you so much for your time,
thank
and I
you.
hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too. And thank you so much for having me. I appreciate your
Absolutely.
willingness to use your voice and this platform and to be willing to speak life and hope and help to people. It really does make a difference.
Well, thank you, and, again, thank you for your platform and all that you do. So,
It is my
all right.
pleasure.
I'll talk to you later.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.